WHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning into In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I to the ism, H to the Izzo talk show.
Mm-hmm.
Sir Charles, who we got?
Miss Max.
Razor.
Right. Okay, in the booth, in the bit, just like good old times. Good old
Wait a
times.
minute for AA Ron. Queens get the money.
So you know how we do. Taking Seville to the world, bringing the world to Seville. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. Ain't
That's
that right,
right.
Miss Max?
That's right. That's right.
And
How's your Sunday?
You know, I ain't gonna complain. God woke us up to see yet
Mhm.
another day.
Mhm.
So we about to make the most of it.
I need a little more than that, though.
Gonna make the most of it.
Yeah, I need a little more. I'm thankful God wake us up,
Uh-huh.
but I need a little more than that, man. Like,
But he supply your every need. Can I get an amen, Miss
that,
Max?
That's what I'm trying to
This
say.
is
So
true.
I need a little more, though. Like, I can't be happy with just getting up. Like,
Max, give it to him.
I gotta do
I need just a little more Jesus.
There you go.
so y'all want? I forgot y'all old Baptists. Let me say, I got shoes on my feet. I got grits to eat, or however that joke. I didn't go to church when I was younger, so I don't know how that song go.
But they
It's
got
okay.
shoes.
It's okay.
Yes, indeed. But Miss Max, Razor, Sir Charles, we are live and in effect. And we got some people, Miss Max, listens to us over the radio airwaves.
Mhm.
But if they out of the listening areas, what's some ways they can reach out to us and give us some feedback?
Well, our Facebook page is one option. Call us here at the studio, right? 434-422-9101.
We got Odyssey,
Mm-hmm.
and then we got TuneIn.
That's right.
Anything else?
Yeah, or they can just show up and look through the window like some stalkers.
No, don't do that.
Yeah,
Don't do
yeah.
that. We're
Come
not calling
on
people
down
you.
to the Piggly Wiggly.
But
Let's
we
get it
do
poppin'.
want you to participate in the show. You know,
Absolutely.
there is another seat in the room, and that belongs to our audience. And we appreciate your engagement, and we want your engagement. We want to make sure that we're talking about the right things, asking the right questions. And so, yeah, please reach out to us. Let us know if you have a question, or if there's a topic that you'd also like to hear us talk about. Glad to hear from you.
And I always like to say IMHO Talk Show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Worldwide.
Yeah.
You know, we streaming that thing like Razor said on the radio apps, but also video,
Yeah.
YouTube,
Award
Facebook.
winning.
Search that IMHO Talk Show. Tell a friend. Tell a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed. But I'm excited about today's show, y'all, because
too.
I'm hopeful that we've been having such impactful guests. You know, the listeners have been talking about who they wanted to hear from, what they want to hear about. You know, so we do it for the people.
A little bit too impactful.
Yeah.
Hey,
Not everybody like it.
hey, but you
I
know,
ain't gonna go no further.
but you know, we are here for a reason. We are here to stand on business.
Yeah.
True.
Business. Whether you spell it with a Z or a D.
Mhm.
Business.
I like mine's with a Z.
I see neither one of y'all pass. No child left behind in here today. I got you.
Madison Public Schools education.
Yeah.
There you go. But I say that because today, it looks like hopefully we're not going to rush anybody, but something that has been, I guess you could say missing maybe, is a little bit of dialogue, us to hear some rants from Razor, for us to ask Max something specific, you know what I mean? And for me to just color between the lines.
Okay.
But so maybe we can get to that today, but we do have back for another year because the people wanted, the families wanted it, the moms wanted it, the kids wanted it. None other than the Jefferson District Youth Football League. They are back at it for another year.
Right.
So our boy Terrence Smith and friends that he may bring with him is going to be chatting with us about another year of getting our youth raised. Because I know you used to be a football player. Get our youth
Don't get me started, Charles. Don't do it.
Reinterested in football. Razor, but
keep moving. Keep moving.
But hold on, no. Razor, did you see that new rule NFL put in where you can't even do hip tackles no more?
You can't do hip. Now,
What?
I don't know how you're supposed to tackle somebody if you can't take your body to the ground to get them to the ground.
Wait, didn't they also change the rules as far as kickoff?
Yep.
Yeah,
They line
yeah.
everybody up. Like, I
Yeah.
mean,
Now that one I'm not so much against because all the kickoffs been going out the end zone. Like, so I'd rather see a return.
okay.
You know what I mean? I get a chance to return the ball.
I got you. But see, that's also been the problem with the NBA. They are so focused on offense that there is no defense right now. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
But that whole can't hip tackle and whatnot, man. I mean, I don't understand. They already blowing the whistle too fast on quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So now you got a 250-pound man who almost jacked up on steroids
Yeah.
running, and how you supposed to get him down? So it's to get the yardage up.
I mean, this might be a wild one, right? But why not extend the length of the football field? Because your players are getting better. So like Charles says, a lot of the kickoffs go out of bounds.
You'd have to redo the stadiums.
That does pose a problem, don't it? It does. That does pose a problem.
But I like that though. 200-yard football field. Let's see who can run it.
Okay,
run it all the way this time.
So y'all might as well run back and take them back to slavery. Running with
Come on now,
runaway
Razor.
slaves.
Come on,
That's what I'm
Razor.
saying.
Come on,
Razor, stick with us.
I know.
We're gonna call it the 40 acres and a mule football league.
But maybe that's something.
Charles, remember you said you wanted this. You
wanted
this.
But are you not entertained?
Yeah,
that's what I ask the people. But hopefully Terrace can touch on that with us in the Jefferson Football League, because I gotta imagine though, even for the traditional football fan, even if it's not favorable, with the whole mission of trying to get our kids back involved and interested in football, right? So because it seems like a big part of it was just too dangerous. It was something where it was no longer of interest when kids have so many other things that occupies their time now. It's not like when we were little, we go outside, and we go to somebody's house, you playing in the front yard.
Absolutely,
football was automatic
in the street.
Yeah,
rocks,
so
it didn't matter.
maybe new safety rules kind of helps out when it comes to recruiting Little League. We got to ask them. We'll see.
It's not football anymore, though. I mean, football started what football was supposed to be. It became, these athletes got so big and strong that it became dangerous. But that's still, it's like they did the same thing with war. They got rules of engagement in a fight. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, things are just changing. So
true.
People that like myself that enjoy the old game, you got to learn to step to the side so it can still evolve. You can't sit on the sideline and start complaining that the kids ain't this and the coaches ain't that. It's a different game now.
Yeah.
And if you can't support it, you need to step to the side.
As a female, though, I appreciate a good game of football. I enjoy watching the kids play football. And honestly, I'm not one of those soft parents that make excuses for the kids.
Yeah.
If
you don't deserve to be out there, then you should not be out there.
Yeah.
That's true. You don't want to be on the field with your head on the swivel. You got to be.
Coaches should coach to win.
Is on the swivel. You got to be paying attention. Can't just be out there lame ducking.
Yeah, I don't even believe in like the participation trophies.
Yeah,
I don't believe.
For sure. I'm with you there. I mean, that's we old school. But Miss Max, the other thing, real quick before we go to break and then bring in JDYFL, we also going to have Dr. Andrea Douglas in talking specifically about swords and the plowshares.
That's a big deal.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, because and I was privileged to be in one of her recent presentations, and I can't wait for her to share with all of our listening audience. She breaks this thing down.
Yeah.
She breaks it down with the whole history of not only statues and monuments, but even parks themselves.
Our son told us that.
Yeah,
he was in something and listened to her, and she captivated him so much that he was almost giving me the presentation when he was describing what
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
I really like Andrea. I mean, granted, we don't know one another too well, but sometimes we find ourselves in the same room. And I guess for me anyway, I would say one of those recognized real deals where when Andrea is in the room.
Absolutely.
There's this
Force of nature.
Quiet power. She may not even be there to talk, but there's this quiet power that moves into the room when she is there, and she is there. You recognize when she is listening to your conversation or whatever it is you're talking about. Yeah. Not everybody has that.
That's
true. That's true. So what's your take, real quick, Miss Max, on what's the importance to you? Because we can ask these questions to her when it comes to a park, and when your child is in school and they're learning about the history of a park, and they're learning that slave owners' names are on this park that you take your Black family to enjoy. So what's the importance to you on the Swords and the Plowshares work when it comes to renaming, when it comes to having symbolism that better represents our community? Does it make a difference? Is history? I don't care what the park name is, or does it make you more comfortable as a mom with your kids on certain ground?
I do believe, as I'm sure most people do, unless something wrong with them, I believe in teaching history as accurately and as thorough as possible. So I do think that should be implemented into our school system. I think that there are teachers that are, at least at CHS, I have one kid there who make a good attempt at making sure that the kids are given an accurate representation of the history of the United States and of the world. I've come to realize, especially with this statue removal, that things that may be considered symbolic initiatives are still, although it may be symbolic, it is still very relevant. And so sometimes we have to do those things just because it takes more than one thing for us to ultimately reach the intended outcome.
Can I drop a bomb, please?
Yes, indeed.
Can I ask y'all something?
Do you?
I mean, can I ask y'all something?
What's that?
Why are we worried about what the park is named when every black person walking around has the slave master's name on the back of them anyway?
Yeah, no, I get that. So, like, what do you say? Like, no, I get
no,
that.
I'm just asking.
But it doesn't negate the fact that it does matter.
So does it matter?
It does matter.
With our last name.
That matters too. That matters too. That's just
I'm
not,
just saying, like,
that's just not
when people like
one
Malcolm
of them
X
fights that all of us is ready to take on right
well, what I'm
now.
saying is, like, when people like Malcolm X said, look, I'm not taking on the slave master's name and I'm gonna put an X right there, right? They met controversy from our own people. So in today's time, when everybody's walking around with a computer in their back pocket, how do we feel when we announce ourselves as Mr. Robinson, Mr. Lewis, Miss Robinson, Miss Struther, right?
Who's Miss Struther?
Oh, I'm sorry. So
I'm gonna step out of this one.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, when we announce ourselves, right, and we stand there with such pride because of the things that we've done through our accolades and our accomplishments, we're still giving reference to the slave master that named us.
I mean,
ask Andrew that. I want to see what Andrew says about that.
That's true, but I think people also attach other affinities to their last name. I'm sure being a Robinson means more than just the slave master's last name to you.
Absolutely. And so does my child running around laughing and joking at a piece of land that's a park.
Right.
That's what matters more to me.
Yeah, like so both things are true. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, where do we decide when we want to fight and don't fight?
Spot on. So what say ye that we go ahead to break and then we bring in first guest, Tara Smith, Jefferson District Youth Football League. They got a camp coming up. They have different games, activities based around football, mentoring for the children. So definitely tell a friend. But as we go to break, Miss Max, we got some special people to shout out, don't we?
We do. Let's see. Make sure I get this right. So the Jefferson School Foundation is a proud sponsor of In My Humble Opinion. The Jefferson School Foundation is a nonprofit 501c3 that owns, operates, and manages the Jefferson School City Center. The foundation's facility is operated by its executive director and staff under the guidance of the foundation's board of directors. The foundation's primary goals and objectives: to promote cooperation and collaboration among the JSCC's tenants in a safe work environment, to preserve and maintain this historic landmark facility as a jewel of the Charlottesville community at large, to repay in full the JSCC facility's debt as soon as practical, and to continue to offer below market rental rates to tenants of the facility.
Can I get a round of applause for that one, y'all?
Thank our good friends over the Jefferson School Foundation. And we're gonna go ahead and take this break and give you a chance to, get some tea or tell a friend. Y'all circle around the fire because we got a good one for you.
Yeah, we own one today.
IMHO Talk
Razor
Show.
is.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, indeed. Back like we never left. I to the Ism, H to the Izzo Talk Show. Sir Charles.
Miss Max.
Razor.
And as promised, we are here with none other than, once again, our brother with the Jefferson District Youth Football League, Terrence Smith. Good to see you once again, my brother. How you feeling?
I feel great.
Good stuff, man. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you for what you're doing with the youth, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Man, just kind of want to, I guess, Max, a good place to start is kind of, just catching up with you. We had you here last year, and of course, the big talk was how across the region, the state, the country, football turnout was low, right? Like seems like kids, families are, just aren't as excited about playing football anymore, right? We saw even some schools couldn't even, get enough players interested to even have a team, right? To get a full roster. So, you guys were applauded last year for the great work you were doing with trying to re-engage the community, working with local athletic departments and stuff to get, kids out at a younger age. So kind of catch us up, man. So, after the inaugural year of kind of bringing this youth football league back, what were some of the pros, the cons, some of the lessons, the highlights from last year?
And why don't you reintroduce yourself for all the listeners?
So my name is Terry Smith. I'm the president of the Charlottesville Black Knights program.
Okay.
And the Jefferson District Football League. Man, last year was tough. We got off to a start, a lot of stuff. We were trying to make sure we had proper equipment to protect the kids. We didn't want to put them in old equipment. We wanted them to be in new equipment. Make sure they were safe. That's the goal. Have fun, be safe. So we were able to do that, with support from the city, other sponsors. We were able to get new equipment and provide that and make sure that the kids were safe.
Right, let me put a pin in this. So when you say city, you mean like
the city of Charlottesville.
City of Charlottesville, like city council.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay.
Yep.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
We were able to, to actually partner with them to get that done.
Okay.
So that was huge.
Yeah.
That was huge. We had a couple of delays in our uniforms. The guy that did our uniforms, he messed them up initially. So our first week we didn't even have uniforms.
Dang, okay.
So we played in the the practice bunnies, the black practice bunnies. Like,
okay.
They're like, oh, you want to push the game back? No, we're gonna play football.
Right. There you go.
That's what we're here for.
So
let's keep it 100 right there though.
Yep.
How much flack you get from that? How many mamas you have about them giving you the money and you got the jerseys?
None.
Oh, that's what's up. Shouts out, y'all. Shouts out,
yeah,
Charlottesville.
it was crazy. Like
I love it.
we didn't last year. We from the parents. Our parents were phenomenal, man.
Love it. Love to hear.
They helped with everything. We needed water. We needed mouthpieces. A kid left a mouthpiece. They would fly to the store, get him a mouthpiece. Like
that's what's up. Nice.
We didn't have any pushback with anything we did. We didn't have parents coming on the field trying to tell us how to coach. Like when they dropped the kids off, most of them actually stayed there for practice up on the hill, but they let us actually coach their kids, which was, that's phenomenal. Like that's a lot.
They were still talking just from the hill.
Yeah, they was talking from the hill, but we couldn't hear it. So it's
I wasn't there, but I have several sons who play sports, so I know we be talking. You just don't hear it.
And that's fine.
Yeah,
we first season went well. We finished 5-4. We made it to the playoffs. We lost in the first round. Growing pains.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
The big thing is the kids had fun. The parents saw their kids having fun. All the kids I think we had last year coming back.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we only had one team last year. Right now it's looking like at least 3.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it's looking like at least 3. And the fourth one is like right there on the edge.
Okay.
What's the age groups for?
Yeah.
So we got 5 to 7, which is explorers, 8 and 9, which is founders.
Okay.
10, 11 is governors, and 12 to 14 is presidents. So our president team, we're actually going to be the Buford team is going to play in the JDYFL this year. So they're going to be under us.
Nice.
So they'll have a full schedule. It's been kind of hard to get a full schedule for them. So while they've had a team, they may have 5 or 6 games.
Just and difficult because other localities don't offer. Okay.
Yep. So now we'll have it. We'll have those teams.
Yeah.
They'll be able to play a full schedule. And we'll be able to provide them with that opportunity.
Okay. How far out y'all play? Like other districts?
So we play everybody in our district. So we play Fluvanna, we play Orange, we play Monticello, Western, Albemarle, Augusta. Louisa is coming back to the league this year.
Okay.
What am I leaving out? Green. Yeah. So we played literally the Jefferson district. So it's everybody that they're going to play against from now until they finish high school if they stay in the area.
Okay.
That's what's up. And you, I think you answered it, but Max's question I was thinking too is like when you said Buford, I was curious if it was when you said under Jefferson League, I was curious if they were playing other schools like Buford would, but it's still just Jefferson League schools.
Nope, they're gonna play everybody that we play. So when they make the schedule, so if we're playing Orange this week, 5 to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11,
Gotcha. Okay.
And then the 12 to 14, which is the Buford team,
Yeah.
will also be playing Orange.
Nice.
You know, so it just cleans it up. It makes it easier for everybody. You're not trying to find schools for them to play, missing teams here, missing teams there. It's just making it a collective and really making it a feeder program for the high school.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Charlottesville has been missing for I mean, the last 5, 6 years. And that's where the fall off comes from.
Yeah.
Like when you don't have that feeder program where you're teaching the kids the terminology, they're learning the formations, learning where they're supposed to line up, how they're supposed to do certain things.
How they're supposed to tackle?
How they're supposed to tackle, how they're supposed to block. Like we're teaching. So when they get to the high school, they can go play football.
Okay, good.
You know, they got an hour and a half to 2 hours of practice.
Yeah.
They can actually just go play football.
Okay.
Right.
They don't have the coaches there don't have to take time. I got a kid that's never played football before. And you still have a couple. But
for sure.
For the majority, I can put these kids on the field and get straight to work.
Good.
And that's why other programs have been better than Charlottesville these past few years because they have that structure in place.
Good.
Where we're establishing it and trying to get it there. And that's my goal. That's our goal.
Right.
Now, speaking of which, shout out some of your staff, your team. Like, so you being a director, like, but who makes up your team? You know that helps get this done.
Yeah. So I got Amanda Burns.
Okay,
she's our communication director. Nicholas Fagans.
Okay.
Damian Banks, Annie Smith, and Eric Johnson.
Nice.
So that's my board for the Village, which is our nonprofit.
Yeah.
Which the Black Knights are under.
Okay.
So board is really, really strong in the community. Amanda's, she's on the school board now. Damian had the BCBA.
Yep.
Which is now, the Tonsillar League.
Right.
And stuff like that. Shout out to the Tonsillar League. That was one of our sponsors from last year.
Okay.
Cool. But yeah, I mean, just touching base. Other sponsors, Ray Morris Towing, Twisted Ink, Tattoos, Red Light Management, Charlottesville City Schools.
That's big.
In the city of Charlottesville.
Cool.
Yeah, that's big. Man, so what I'm thinking is like what's been the temperature of the surrounding counties when it comes to doing the Jefferson District Youth Football League, right? Because like Louisa's been pretty standard, like standard powerhouse for this area when it comes to football, right?
Yep.
Like that's one that just stands out in my mind. So when it comes to maybe like Charlottesville not having as much interest, currently as it used to, or in the recent past as it used to. What's been that conversation like when it comes to convincing even like a Louisa or whoever or Orange to say, hey, like we need to reignite this Jefferson District Youth Football League? Because I imagine some of them probably were in other little leagues, Pop Warners,
Orange was here. Orange has been here. Louisa hasn't.
Okay.
So Louisa's coming back this year.
Okay. So with Charlottesville Little League, like one of the only teams that wasn't participating in this youth football league in particular?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we didn't have a team for 2 years.
Okay.
And like all of our kids got split up.
Right. Okay.
So they went to Monticello, some went to
Albemarle. Yep.
So it was a lot of that. And then like last year was a lot of like trying to get our kids to come back.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like just get them back to where they are supposed to be.
Gotcha. Okay.
But bringing up Louisa, they've been a powerhouse because they do the same thing from their little league all the way up.
Right.
Like there's a communication that they have from little league through the high school coaches, and it doesn't change. So if they're doing something at the high school level, it may be watered down at the little league level,
right.
But they're doing the same thing.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? So it's building that, and we'll get there. Like we're gonna get there
for sure.
And winning cures a lot.
Oh yeah.
So if you saw like Charlottesville boys and girls basketball,
absolutely,
and how the stands were full and the support that they got from the community, when you win, people rally behind you.
That's right.
But like with Charlottesville football, they've been losing, and we've been losing, and we've been losing bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like it's not even a competitive thing.
Mhm.
It's like we just haven't been. The kids have been fighting, so I'm not gonna say that.
Yeah,
but we haven't been putting it together.
Yeah. The preparation.
Yeah, and a part of that is it starts with the little league.
Right.
You know, like they're getting kids that haven't ever played football.
Yeah.
Like never put on a helmet. Like I was on the sideline for some games, and some of the kids didn't know how to strap their helmet. Like they need help.
That's real.
And you're in high school.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I got kids in the Pop Warner's league that I got to help them strap their helmet. But by the end of the season, they strapping their helmet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like just taking little stuff like that out that coaches don't have to worry about, and they can actually focus on the craft.
Yeah. You know, I'm not to be like overly critical, but this is a thing. So I've only been in the city school system. This is my second year now, but I can tell you that when I have attended a high school football game, I've watched varsity play and asked myself, how does a team that has so much talent, albeit raw, just natural talent, still not be able to pull it together? There's too much talent there for what we're seeing.
Yeah. I mean, it's always been a ton of talent, but I think the difference is like with football, it's 11 people on the field at a time, so it's a lot of moving pieces. Whereas basketball is like 5, so you can have some raw players playing basketball, and you can kind of make it work. But with 11, like it's a lot more. Like it's more space, it's more spread out. And if one person doesn't do their job, it can make it look like 5 people aren't doing their job. Whereas basketball, you can tell like that guy is not doing his job, and everybody else is guarding who they're supposed to be guarding. Like one guy can make it look like a defensive tackle can make it look like a linebacker, and a safety are all the way out of place, even if they're in the right spot. So I think that's the challenge. And again, we're gonna get there because they're gonna learn that stuff before.
I got a question.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good stuff. Yeah, that's a great point, man. And so we are joined by Terrence Smith of the Jefferson District Youth Football League Black Knights. And so they're back for their second annual Black Knight football camp. So we're in springtime now. And so as I understand it, the actual league play starts in the fall.
League play in the fall.
Got you. So update the audience and families that's listening that may be new this year. Like what to expect through the spring and the summer, like what y'all got kicking off now.
Yeah. So again, this is our second annual Black Knight football camp. It's April the 20th, 1 to 5 p.m. at Charlottesville High School. After this camp, we're going to open up pre-registration or early registration. And that registration is going to be $75. So it's normally $150. We're going to do an early bird. It's half. And we'll leave that open for like 2 months to try to get, the families that can't afford it, and just try to get the kids out. Try to help out as much as we can with that. After the camp, we'll start conditioning, where we'll just meet up for an hour, a couple of days a week, and we'll just start we'll run, just working through the motions, trying to get kids in shape and stuff like that. And then in June, we'll actually start to rev up for practice and stuff like that.
Okay, good stuff. And they can find more info too at the Village, the Ville and an H, so VILLEAGE.org, thevillage.org.
So maybe I missed it. Is there a fee for the camp itself?
The camp fee is $10.
Okay.
If there is more than one kid in the household, the second kid is $5, third kid is $5, fourth kid is $5.
Okay.
Yep.
Good stuff. Now, I'm also curious about the league rules, like when it comes to players that may want to play for a different team. Like, is that allowed, or is it district based, just like where you go to school?
So it's district based, but there are like waivers that can be placed. So like, let's say your dad coaches, you live in Fluvanna, but your dad works and coaches in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Then there can be a waiver put in place for that.
Okay.
I know they're trying to eliminate a lot of the waiver stuff, so you play where you live. Which
I'd agree with that.
Which makes sense, to me.
I don't.
No, you don't agree with that? But the whole goal,
the
whole goal, Miss Mac, for them to kids they're going to go to high school.
Yeah, I get it. But a way so you can live in Albemarle County, and if you go to city schools or work in the city, then you could potentially get a waiver.
Potentially.
Yeah. Okay.
Charles, I got a question.
Yeah. So man, Razor's sitting there pretty quiet.
Nah, I'm talking. Can you hear me?
We must be checking out about like the one of us that actually played football. He quiet.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Yeah, I've been hollering the whole time over here. My microphone must ain't right.
Oh, my bad.
Talk football here. Like y'all, I mean, y'all giving out the good information. Coach, I need you to talk to me as a dad here real quick. How important is winning when you're coaching in today's game? Because that is
Don't lie.
what I hear the problem be for the fathers is that yes, we're worried about safety. Yes, we want to get everybody playing. But at the end of the day, I want my child to win. So if my child has that dog in him, I don't want people watering him down because my child got dog in him and your child don't.
Yeah, so winning is important. Everybody loves winning. I hate losing more than I love winning. So
okay.
I hold the kids to a standard. Everything we do is a standard. School, it's a standard. At home, it's a standard. When you get to practice, it's a standard. If you're not meeting those standards, you don't play.
Gotcha.
As far as winning goes, winning is the ultimate goal, right? And you can talk about it however you want. Everybody wants to win. Our goal as a whole is to teach the kids how to play the game safely. But we want to dominate while we're doing that. Let me be clear. We not taking the second fiddle from nobody. I don't care how good you were last year. I don't care how many kids you got on the sideline.
Right.
Like if we show up with 11, we expect to win the game. Like if we lace them up, that's bottom line. We expect to win.
And I'll take competitive over winning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just give it your best. That's all.
Yeah. But the thing is,
not everybody plays by that creed. So.
Yeah. But and I think that's you could get stuck in that mentality too. Because you can be competitive and not win. And it'll end up never being enough. You'll think being competitive
I don't believe in that.
Is the end all be all. You know what I'm saying? Like we want to win. Like I don't want anybody to get a misconception like we're here to have fun. The kids want to win. Which is why like I know me personally, the stuff that I've been doing like behind the scenes since last year ended, I took like a couple weeks off and I got right back to it. But I wanted to make sure the kids had stuff we didn't have. The kids have the training equipment we didn't have. So it gives them every opportunity to get better. So for me, when I played football, it was something Dion said always stuck with me.
Okay.
You look good, you feel good.
True.
You feel good, you play good.
Yeah.
You play good, they pay good.
Okay.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we gotta put that into the kids. So a lot of the kids now that aren't playing sports, they see the stuff on social media, but we don't have the stuff that they're seeing. Like Charlottesville doesn't have the stuff they seeing on social media.
Okay.
So if you go on Instagram right now and you look up Texas football, like their high schools are like colleges.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like everything, like I'm talking about like the stadiums are like UVA.
Okay.
And that's a high school.
Yeah.
But they got nice uniforms. They got a million people out there in the stands. They got people out there recording them, people making highlights. We have to give our kids that stuff too.
Yeah.
Once our kids see that, because you have to tap into their social media side. And if you can do that, you can get that talent that's sitting out on a computer or on a video game. You can get that talent on the field. You can get that talent on the court. You can get them away from that TV, away from that iPad screen. But we have to be able to tap into that psyche and actually identify with them.
Yeah.
So if we can't identify with them, they're not going to relate to us.
Yeah. And one of the things that I appreciate about your answer to Razor too is about wanting to win, but doing it the right way.
Yeah.
because the whole like the moral obligation behind it, like that we're teaching our kids, and you know, and I know you're seen by many as a mentor as well, and so like that, so that's highly appreciated because it's very important to say we're gonna win, but we're gonna do it the right way. So how hard is it to get people to trust the process? Because when people are seeing sort of an end result, you know, like last year's record at the high school would not, it's like I could, like, not that I agree, but I could understand the, you know, like the frustration of wanting to fix that immediately. But how hard is it to get people to trust the process?
It's hard. Like, it's no sugarcoating it. It's hard because like you got a new coach, so like, and Woody's like he's won state championships. So some parents might see that and say, "I'm expecting an immediate change." It doesn't.
The high
work
school
like
has
that.
a new coach now.
Yeah,
He
started
The one
year.
last year.
Oh,
right?
okay,
Coach
okay,
Woody.
okay.
Yeah, so you know, some parents are going to expect like an immediate change. It
No.
doesn't work like that all
no.
the time. You know what I'm saying? Like a part of that is some of those kids. Like when I went to the high school games, like it's kids that should be playing football. Like I don't like 40 kids that should be playing football. And I mean, I think that's one of the differences. Like from when we grew up, we played sports. Like we tried to play sports all year. Like now, like kids are like, I'm a basketball player.
Right.
Like that's what I'm gonna play.
Right.
Like, but I want kids to understand, like when you play different sports, it strengthens different muscles. Like it makes you stronger here. What you do on the football field will make you stronger on the basketball court. If you wrestle, that's gonna make you stronger all the way around. If you run track, you'll actually learn how to run, like really run, and it'll help you get faster. You know what I mean? It help you get quicker. It puts the twitch in those muscles that if you just play basketball year round, you're working the same muscles every single day. So I want kids to understand that too. Like, don't get caught in the phase like, oh, I'm just a hooper, or I just play baseball. Because all these other sports are gonna make you better. And I know like they have a free track program during the summer. I want all of my kids to go to the track program, participate, and then after the track program, we're gonna do conditioning. But I know what track is doing for you, like overall. So I mean, it's a lot to it. There's a lot going into it, but you got to get kids interested and actually get them outside.
Right.
You know.
Hey, Coach, I got another question for you.
Yes, sir.
Last year, you said you ain't had nobody to cuss at the kids. Is that application still open?
Yeah, I mean,
that application still open.
So you know,
have to put him on the head.
Curse words.
Bring him on just for that.
Curse words happen, right? Like nobody's perfect. We're not perfect. The one thing we try to teach the kids is like curse words will slip. We get it. Even with us, curse words slip. But we can't go around just cussing the whole time, like all day, every day. It's a life lesson. So like with us, we're building like it's a visual with it. You know what I'm saying? So like we want it to be clean. You know what I'm saying? Like we're not gonna be on. I'm not gonna be on the sidelines turning around cussing a parent out. Like that's kind of wild. And I don't want any of my coaches doing that. Like none of them. Again, curse words are gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? But we're not out there like belittling the kids. We're not cursing. If practice is an hour and a half, we not cussing for 45 minutes. You know what I mean? Like it might be a curse word might fly here and there, but that's not what we're teaching. Because the problem is when we curse, if we curse a lot, they're gonna curse a lot, right? Because they're gonna do what we do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like the kids look at us as mentors.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we gotta build a trust with them to where we don't have to cuss at them. You know what I'm saying? Now we can yell. You know what I'm saying? We can yell, and you also got to understand which kids can handle that and which kids can't.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying?
You know, you
That's
mentioned
all part of
something
it,
off air about the Charlottesville sports program having a bad reputation. And is that something that you still deal with on the youth league level, dealing with the surrounding counties or localities that you play against?
I think we got rid of that stigma last year.
Okay.
Like for us. And I think just maintaining that moving forward. I feel like you get more bees with honey.
That's
for
right.
sure.
That's right.
You know, I don't have to be nasty to get a result.
Right.
Like that's my goal. Like that's my mindset. And I want the kids I want them to play with the nasty mindset
Yeah.
But show the sportsmanship.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we want to dominate, but we're gonna be sportsmen about it.
Right.
Sportsmen and sportswomen, because we have girls on our team too.
Right. That's big.
So I want to make sure that they understand, like, the competitive juices is cool, but we don't have to belittle. We don't have to, shoot a kid down. We don't have to taunt. Like, we can score a touchdown and we can go, like, the kids celebrate a little bit and they go back to the huddle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, act like you've been there before.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? That's it. Bottom line.
Yeah.
So we got to teach them how to be young men and young women, so they can be valuable in the community. Because like, sports teach you life lessons.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna run from stuff. If you quit, you're gonna run from stuff your whole life.
Hey, there you go.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you setting a standard for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we trying to make sure that they don't do.
Yeah. And a lot of it's been preconceived notions too.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's been from the opposing parents or whether it's been from the referees.
Yeah.
Like, I've been to games where I've seen, kids from other teams just be nasty and ugly. And if there's like a
little scuffle,
then it's automatic. You looking at Charlottesville.
Every
Like,
time.
you're looking at, and of course, like we like you pointed out the basketball team and how there was like a culture shift because winning kind of cured that ill. But it was the same thing, right? It was like the city school is the one that always gets pointed at, and we ignore all these issues that's going on at other schools or what other kids are doing because you have this preconceived notion that those city school kids are the bad ones.
Yep.
And we are debunking that myth, and I appreciate you helping with that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And the media has to. The news media, like, even how good the boys and girls teams were, they didn't start getting coverage until the end of the season. You know what I'm saying? Like, the girls team was undefeated, and they didn't start getting news coverage like that until they had won 17, 18 games. And now they're on TV. You know what I mean? Like, we got to stop doing that, because if it was another school, they would have been getting that coverage and they would have been getting looked at. And I always tell my kids, we don't make excuses. Like, I don't expect the referees to like us. I don't expect the referees to show us love. I don't expect the other coaches to. Like, I tell my kids, every game, we got to score enough points so the referees don't matter. So whatever they call, it don't matter.
Right.
We're going to put up enough points to where if they call some stuff at the end of the game or late in the game, it doesn't change our outcome.
There you go. It's
so I think that's what we gotta teach our kids. Like, you control what you control, and the rest will fall in place.
There you go, man. So we have been talking to Terrence Smith, the JDYFL Charlottesville Black Knights Camp, Saturday, April 20th, 2024 at Charlottesville High School. The event will be at 1 p.m. until 5 p.m., $10 per child, $5 for each additional child. And he said you can get more information at thevillage.org, and that's spelled like the Ville and then age. So thevillage.org, you can get more info. Anybody else you want to shout out, man? Anything else? Because I know last year that there was some access to some free physicals. And you did mention the early bird registration for the actual team, which is half price for the early bird. But we'll give you the closing words.
So we need a sports physical?
You do need a sports physical.
Okay.
And we're working on that, so they will be free.
Okay.
So they won't be a charge to parents. We haven't locked down the date, location, or anything like that. But it will be on the website as soon as we figure it out.
Okay.
It'll be there. The nonprofit we working on a lot of stuff. We're going to be sponsoring the AAU basketball team soon. We're working on a trade program, for high schoolers, because everybody's not going to go to college.
Right.
Like, we understand that. Somebody might want to be a DJ. Somebody might want to be a photographer, a videographer. So not taking away from what K-Tech does, but if we have kids that want to do certain things, we want to make sure we put them in a position where they're getting the one-on-one training to kind of expedite that and get them out there on their own, where they can actually make money and the legal way, and not have to worry about looking over their shoulder or anything like that. And actually giving them a life skill. And then even if they want to go to college, if you're doing photography and videography, you go to college, you can make money while you in school.
Right.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
just trades, whatever it may be, military, right? Whatever it may be.
Yeah. So the trade program that's coming soon. We still working out a couple things. We got a couple kids that we talked to. So that'll be coming really, really soon, probably like within like the next month. So
okay. We're gonna have to have you back up here and have the AAU talk, because I got some opinions, strong opinions on that. How many AAU basketball teams we need in this town?
So and that's the thing, like
how many do we have?
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Like, and that was one of my things, like, and that's why I didn't want to start one.
Yeah.
Because
But you said sponsor one.
I'll
right.
sponsor.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
we're gonna sponsor one.
Okay.
And again,
thank you for that clarification.
Yeah. No, I'm not starting another team. Like it's so many teams, and I feel like
we're diluting the pool.
We're diluting the pool, and then you're taking kids to different spots, and they're competitive, but then they're running into teams where from that area they're loaded.
They're loaded. All
you
the
know
team,
what I'm saying? So
all the
they
best
end up
players,
running into a buzzsaw, where I feel like you might be able to structurally pull some of these resources together, create a better team. Even if you have an A and a B team, you know what I mean, but the same team, and you travel with them, I feel like, to me personally,
you on to something. We got to talk about this off air, so nobody steal our idea. But just that idea though of like even if you say like the showcase tournaments at the end of the summer, where it's like the big championships, like why don't we put an all-star team together? They're like you could play for your organization do this during the spring. But by end of summer, we take all our best kids and have the Charlottesville team together. Hey, y'all better not steal that idea. We got it on record. Terrace is going to lead that up. We're going to get these AAU organizations together.
But man, we working on a lot of different stuff. We want to do more sports for kids. Like we're getting tutors for kids now. That was on the football team. Like stuff like that. We're doing that stuff too. So like, I don't want you to think it's all about sports. Like we want your grades to be good. We want you to be able to get a scholarship to go to school if you want to go to school.
And you holding them accountable?
Holding them accountable.
Okay.
Yeah, like you don't come to practice. Like if a parent, so last year we had parents come tell us such and such showing off at school, such and such showing off at home. Cool. We run them at practice. And when I say we run them, the team. Because we gonna hold each other accountable.
Nobody liking anybody into practice.
We gonna hold each other accountable.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So and that's one of the things. Like, and I was in the military. So if somebody messed up, everybody messed up. But that's just teaching them like, yo, if we hold each other accountable, we're gonna be better all around. You know, so if we can do that, we're good. But
that's a life lesson.
I had parents tell me, oh well, he can't play. Cool. He gonna put that jersey on. He gonna come stand on the sideline. He gonna watch. He not gonna play, but he gonna be here, so he understand what he did wrong.
Right.
And then we didn't have that problem anymore.
There you go.
So it eliminates stuff. Like when you actually like put discipline, I guess you can say, in place.
Absolutely.
Put a structure in place. Like kids respond to it. They want it. They want structure. And most of the kids like if they running around super wild all the time, they just need structure. And that normally resolves a lot of it. What I found anyway.
Oh, cool, brother, man. Thank you for joining us once again.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Like all the best success, best wishes, man. You always got our airwaves, you always got our support.
I appreciate it.
And speaking of support, I know there's always room for supporters, right?
Absolutely.
Donors, sponsors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And like all those links are on our page at thevillage.org. My phone number is listed if you need to speak with me, you need any information about what we have going on. And we are a nonprofit. Everything is in order there. So, we're always looking for donors. We're trying to get back.
Straight.
Got to.
Gotta have that paperwork.
Got to. The paper is straight. We don't have. We're not doing that. We're not gonna have those problems. But yeah, we want to get back to the community as much as we can. And just develop good people, man. And if we can do that, we gonna make the community better. The sports will fall in place. The kids you'll see more kids doing more things, creating their own careers and their own lanes. And a lot of kids are already doing that. Like I know a 14-year-old that does hair. She does my daughter's hair.
Yeah.
And she make more than some people I know. Yeah. So she charging $2 something to do hair.
Yeah.
And she doing a hair the day after school, and then the weekend she booked.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like,
that is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's a new world, man. Like with the NIL, the endorsements, it's a new world for these amateur athletes.
And that's another thing. You can get an NIL in high school here.
Yeah.
So you're gonna start seeing that flowing down, and people actually making hundreds of thousands of dollars when they 16 and 17.
Yep.
And I'm not the one to tell you how to manage that, but I can help you find somebody to put you in the right situation.
There you go.
I
got one more question for you. So in terms of your coaching staff, if someone wants to learn more about the game and would like to be maybe an assistant coach or help out or what have you, how do they
just reach out to me?
Okay.
Yep. So right now we have 14 coaches on staff.
Okay.
Right now. Last year we had 5. So the more coaches we have, the
know what
more
they're doing.
One-on-one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got
that's important.
And so we have coaches that are really they coach at high levels. We have coaches that have coached at Pop Warner. We have coaches that haven't really coached before.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're really, really good with kids, then you can get the best out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the guys haven't coached before, but I know they're really, really good with kids. So they'll be able to get the best out of them, and they're going to learn under the guys that really, really know. So if you're interested in coaching, you can inbox me. My phone number is on the flyer. It's on the internet. Just call me, and we'll work it out.
Okay. One more question I have to ask. Is that a volunteer position?
It is a volunteer position. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So everything is volunteer. Nobody's getting paid.
Okay.
But we're going to look good. We're going to feel good, and we're going to play good. And we're going to set a new standard around here that, people are going to have to respect at the end of the day.
Right. Good for you.
Yep.
Good for you.
Right.
Well, thank you, Terrence, for joining
you.
us today. And we really, IMHO really appreciates, and on behalf of the community, appreciates the investment that you're making in our area kids. And we wish you all the best. You're welcome here. Come back, talk about new endeavors,
I will.
different events and things like that. All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in the city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
Show back like we never left. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor, how y'all doing?
Good. I appreciate that last interview. It was refreshing. It wasn't nothing heavy. It wasn't nothing controversial. It was refreshing. I appreciate it. We need to have those conversations from time to time.
I love the fact that he was willing to be a leader for our kids. Like most people avoid kids now. Kids get on your nerves. Don't nobody raise. Everybody come up with all kind of excuses.
Razor get telling his feelings.
Speaking about Razor.
But I mean, the fact.
Are you projecting?
Yeah. I am. I'm saying what y'all want to say. Y'all just too nice to say it. But yeah, the fact that the same person,
teachers listening like, yep, they sure do.
But the same person that showed up last year showed up this year.
Yeah.
And so he has nothing but respect and love from me.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. But also want to shout out our friends over at Legal Justice Aid as well, because they are doing another expungement clinic. So want the folks to know that they would prefer that you register in advance, and that deadline is April the 18th. And the actual clinic is on April the 24th at City Space. So y'all know the good folks, Harold Foley and all them good folks with their expungement clinic, where they not only provide information about expungement, but also just the rights and the restoration of rights that goes into the expungement.
And people need to educate themselves.
Yes,
like
indeed.
you need to know what expungement means. You know what I'm saying? Like ask questions. Look, you got your computer. You stay on Facebook all the time. Look to see what expungement means, so that way you don't show up with unreal expectations and get mad because somebody tells you the truth about your situation. Like, I mean, that's just my take on it.
No, it's true.
But a Legal Aid Justice Center Expungement Council, like I said, you can reach out to them on their website for more information. But you can also go on IMHO Talk Show page to get the links and see the flyer and whatnot. So yes indeed. But one more again, Miss Max, we got some special friends to shout out. Who that is?
The Jefferson School Foundation, of course, is a proud sponsor of In My Humble Opinion. The Jefferson School Foundation is a nonprofit 501c3 that owns, operates, and manages the Jefferson School City Center. The foundation's facility is operated by its executive director and staff under the guidance of the foundation's board of directors. The foundation's primary goals and objectives: to promote cooperation and collaboration among the JSCC's tenants in a safe work environment, to preserve and maintain this historic landmark facility as a jewel of the Charlottesville community at large, to repay in full the JSCC facility's debt as soon as practical, and to continue to offer below market rental rates to tenants of the facility.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank y'all. Thank y'all out there. So we do have Dr. Andrea Douglas coming up here just shortly, talk about the swords and the plowshares. So we have much show, and we're gonna try to get some probably end of the show because we don't want to rush that thing, but we may give a little teaser right now, you know, for some of the topics that's been coming across the board to us.
Tell them about the gun line, boss.
I mean, but there's just so much going on, you know, in the world today. What's wrong with the world today, Razor? What's wrong with it?
No Diddy.
But
no Diddy.
But you know, I mean, and just politically, like that's always a thing, right? And then people fighting over, you know, like their beliefs without forgetting the golden rule, you know, of love your neighbor as yourself. So many problems would be resolved right now. You know, it just blows my mind how people kind of just stand behind sort of blind faith when the truth is just right there.
Yeah,
so
but you said it. They don't love themselves. You know,
well, there you go.
Social media has made it worse. You know, Mike used to talk about the man in the mirror. Like, so the person in the cell phone is way worse than the man in the mirror because you don't know that person. You're performing who you want society to say that you are, you know, and our children have bought into it. We have done a horrible job of letting technology conform and raise American kids. I don't know that I see the same problems out of other nationalities that we have here. Like, we look for acceptance so much that we're willing to sacrifice who we are as people for this. You know,
that's big, man. And you know, part of that though is, you know, the whole TikTok debate. There's some network security folks and politicians as well that have said that that the TikTok algorithms are different based on the country.
Right. China's different than here. Like I
they give our kids junk. We give their kids educational.
Absolutely. But we allow it. You know what I'm saying? Because we follow the money. Aaron always said that, follow the money, right? So because we allow our children to walk around with $1,000 phones in their pocket, and most of them can't spell the words that are in their textbooks without having the system start spelling it for them. You know, we have allowed society norms to raise our kids.
I wait for the free phone myself. I don't spend that.
The flip phone.
That's a free phone.
The jitterbug.
You gotta wait till my contract's up for renewal. For you
I know, right? You ain't lying.
I hear y'all talking about a lot of things though, where the onus falls on what should be responsible adults in the lives of these youth who should be better managing and maintaining and guiding our young people, because you can create any program that you want to. It doesn't mean that the kid, you know, will automatically have access to it as long as there's.
But we got kids raising kids.
Yeah,
you know.
But you know, Razor, I think it made me think about there was a deeper issue even with the phones that we got. We talk about blood diamonds, and we made it mandatory for jewelers to prove and have statements on their sites that these are not blood diamonds, that, you know, like that we mine these or we receive these in an ethical way, in a humane way. We need to do the same for phones. A lot of people don't realize that part of the war and part of the reason that some of Africa is still colonized based on its presidents of its countries is because those minerals, those resources are still from the motherland.
Before you respond to that though, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, phones, the number one material that makes the majority of our cell phones is only found in Africa. And that's why China and India are there. If we're gonna tell us that, now that's reason. That's reason enough for us not to care so much about cell phones. But we're a long way from that.
This conversation could go so many directions, but I just wanted to say you can be a young parent and still have some good direction as to.
But that's not what I said, Max.
You said kids raising kids.
I said kids, exactly. They look to their friends for their guidance for what they need to do. I'm not talking about the parents. I'm not talking about young parents. I'm talking about kids are raising kids. Most of our kids care more about what their friends think about them than they do their parents. And that's real.
But Miss Max, I got a good segue from that for you before we bring Dr. Douglas in here.
Okay.
What you think about Cowboy Carter? And the reason I say that is because when we talk about history, right, and we talk about symbolism and what we've been taught that things mean, a lot of times we get complacent and we just accept it because when you rock the boat, too much, you get some backlash. But truth is the truth. And a lot of times, we just pick it, like Razor was saying, we kind of pick and choose like what truth we want to put weight in. And so that's one of the things. A lot of people will tell you the history of Buffalo Soldiers, tell you the history of like original ranchers, and even how the term cowboy
Bill Pickett.
Cowboys was meant for black ranchers and wranglers because they called them boys, right? But so like there's so much history behind that. But what Beyonce
reading up,
but with the Queen Bee,
he Netflix. He don't read. Charles got magazines like I do. Charles don't read nothing.
Oh, y'all interrupting me giving praise to the Queen Bee. The Queen Bee came out and did this Cowboy Carter album. Whether you like the music or not, I mean, I ain't the hugest fan of it, but what I can appreciate is how she exposed and how all these black country artists that we already have, the present ones, now they're getting listens because of her. She using her star power correctly. Say what you want about J and B, they use their star power for good, and she also shed light on some of the original country singers and original country artists who were black, never got shine. Last thing before we get your opinion, Max, did y'all know Johnny Cash was married to a black woman?
Yes.
They barred this woman from his shows because he was black. So he stopped performing some places. If you look at that man's kid,
and what she do?
And if you look at their descendants, they are obviously of mixed race. When you look at his descendants. But Johnny Cash, everywhere man.
This is the thing. Go ahead, Max. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I just feel like do what you do. Like I don't disagree or throwing any shade on Beyonce's record and her making country music. I mean, I think that first and foremost, the girl is from Texas. Like she is country. Like let's take a minute to think about that piece of it. But she is catching a lot of flack just because people are feeling like she's stepping into a lane that belongs to them, which is not the case. And it's funny the way they pick and choose what country music artists they will choose to accept versus those they'll choose to criticize. For example, the city just received Kane Brown, who is of mixed race, who had a concert at JPJ, and the stadium was packed and folk was jumping up and down and screaming, and they was all colors, right? Probably mostly of Caucasian, right? Mostly Caucasian crowd. And that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. But here we have Beyonce, and I think that people just don't want them in her lane because she is one of the best to do it,
right?
And they don't want
overshadow.
And so I think that's where a lot of the criticism comes from. But as far as I'm concerned, do what you do.
This is the thing, and my dad's family was, I'm a Robinson, so the largest plantations were in Louisiana and South Carolina, right? So it's kind of strange to me how we can say that the origin of the word cowboy was black, and we are musical by nature people. So how do they not figure that we've been singing country music since the beginning down in the South? Everything isn't a New York rapper. Everything isn't a Detroit, Motown, right? But because we were exalted in those fields, those became our thing, right? So when you look at music that Elvis stole and, Tennessee whiskey and all this type stuff that was pretty much stolen, right?
That's don't you talk bad about Tennessee.
Don't you do it. Don't do it.
I'll say it twice on Sunday. It don't make me no different. But the thing I'm trying to get across is, right, in its origin, music is music. You know what I'm saying? When you close your eyes, we all black. You know what I'm saying? And if the music makes you feel good, the music makes you feel good.
And also, Razor, like the artist who bite off of beats, rap beats and things like that in their country music don't face the same backlash or criticism.
I was thinking that. Yeah. I was thinking that. Like, they can rap, but but when we sing with some twang, it's
right. I mean, no, but we went at Eminem. No, we're gonna tell it. Let's tell it all. Okay. Like, I mean, we went at Eminem, so we're not exalted from. To be honest with you, we went at them before they went at us. When you started having Vanilla Ice and Eminem and play, like, come on now, black people was furious because they went to the top. Charles,
appropriation. That's totally different. That's exactly. Thank you, Max. Max just told you how it's different.
How?
Because we talking about
picking and choose.
No, we're not, because we talking about like things like the banjo and stuff, and that style of music.
So who made the banjo?
Being black and Southern. I mean, like, we could trace it back to Africa.
Exactly.
So we talking about an art form that was started by black people or people. Well, let's keep it black Americans compared to someone of another culture coming in and appropriating your culture. That's two different things.
Wait a minute. Whole time.
That's two totally different things.
You know what you sound like right now?
What I sound like? Umar? I sound like Umar?
You sound like the people that get mad at the white women with cornrows when we got women walking around straightening their hair with bones straight.
I don't like either one of them.
No, but I'm just saying that's what it sounds like. And please, I know y'all getting up in arms about what I'm saying, but what I'm really trying to say is, when we, just like we were talking about the Parks earlier, you pick and choose. If they want to have a problem with Beyonce, it only gains steam if we acknowledge it.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of how social media works.
If we walk out here and somebody starts hollering, "Hey, Greg, hey, Greg," it does not take anything out of our life until we turn around and acknowledge and engage. So because they have a problem with it, so what? They got a problem with your black skin.
It can be so what, and you can still acknowledge. I mean, it ain't even. It's not. It may not even be necessarily acknowledging it.
How's it
but
not?
You can tell your own narrative.
Why? No. I'm just bear with me for a second. Why do you feel like you got a certain time limit on this earth? Your dash. You decide where you spend the majority of your time.
And I think that's the dividing factor, is deciding when you need to respond and when not to.
Why are we responding? Because they got a problem with Beyonce. We still gonna get the music. She gonna get the money, and they upset. Ain't that a win-win for us all the way around?
I mean, yeah, but no, don't confuse the conversation with us caring about what they think. We just talking about it for the sake of talking about it.
So how do you talk about something and not care about it? How do you give it time in your life?
Just want to disagree just for the sake of
disagreeing. But that's racist.
I'm trying. It just sounds.
No, but let me clarify what I was
saying. Is what I'm saying.
No, you're right. But let me clarify what I was saying.
Did y'all disagree with me?
Like, I don't mind.
Is this being recorded? Did Sir Charles disagree with me? Okay.
No, but like there's different things too, right? Because culturally, like, we are a melting pot nowadays, and I understand, just so nobody get too upset with me. I understand how, like, you could take a white kid that grew up around all black kids, he's part of the hip hop culture. Like hip hop is global, hip hop is worldwide now. We ain't talking about 1980 anymore. So I'm an Eminem fan. I respect him. He's one of the best to ever do it. I hold nothing against the man, but the only thing I was pointing out was that, like, that is a difference from when a culture that creates something compared to cultures who then pick it up and try to own it as their own. Like, that's the only point I was making.
Is Kane Brown white or black?
I don't know what he identifies as. Like, that don't matter to me.
No,
I'm just talking about Beyonce's acceptance shouldn't be a problem.
It do if he accepts one side or the other. So let's say if he says, "I'm a black man that sings country," and the majority of us around here didn't even know who he was. We had to learn out from our kids, right? So then, is it black music that they're accepting, or did he grow up in the Midwest and he pretty much grew up on the white side of his family, and he doesn't consider himself a black man, so to speak? He says, like Tiger Woods, "I'm Camblazian." So then,
I mean, he makes it more relatable. Definitely, when you have a Kane Brown,
you understand what I'm saying?
When you have a Kane Brown, it opens up the audience. For sure.
Yeah. So, but I'm saying, where does our up and on? If they were against Kane Brown, would we be upset?
No,
probably not, because I don't think he's
so what y'all talking about?
I'm not upset with
because I don't think.
I mean, will we give it conversation? I'm sorry, Max. Not upset. I said that wrong. Let me retract that.
But I can answer that though.
But
I can answer that though. Because he's not like he's not canvassing for black country artists. If he was saying, "I'm a black man and I do country and I need to be accepted,"
so you think Beyonce did?
That's all she did. Like, her whole point was to bring light to the new and up and coming black country artists. That's her whole reason for doing this.
I'm sure they didn't ask her to.
I don't know. I mean, she's powerful, Razor.
I'm about 99% sure that they didn't ask her to. Like,
it's power move, if you ask me.
No, it's absolutely, absolutely. I mean, for her to do what her and Jay-Z do, we get the benefit of it, right? But if you decide to come pick up my fight, that's your choice. That doesn't mean that I have to align with you because you decided to step over here for one album, one song.
I got you.
One, you know what I'm saying? You don't become everybody's advocate.
Right. Yeah, we don't know the answer to that, but I got to imagine that they ain't hating on her cosign. It's helping.
No.
They're selling records.
Well, I mean, think about it. Like, you only over here to get some shine and glory. We see that happen in the sports realm. We see that happen. We had, I ain't gonna call it, oh Lord, I almost got in trouble.
And we got to get Dr. Douglas in too.
Okay, I'm sorry, but we had problems with some of the leaders of here that we say would only show up to our events because they would be the ones getting the glory for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about it. There were certain things around Thanksgiving and other things where we had problems with people because they showed up and then we felt like they was trying to make it their own. So if we can do that to a person that we can see, I know that it's happening to somebody like Beyonce. If she don't make a second album, she was only stepping there to do what she wanted to do.
I mean, that's your opinion, but okay. I mean, like, but you entitled to your opinion. It's cool. We all got our opinion.
In my humble
That's why it's called in my humble opinion.
In my humble opinion.
All right, we got to get Dr. Douglas in before she leaves because Razor,
she ain't going
trying
nowhere.
to be right up in here.
She ain't going nowhere. It better not go nowhere.
All right, y'all.
Look, talk about him.
Max, take us real quick. Sir Charles.
Yeah, let's go to break.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., Either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
Yes, indeed. I to the ism, H to the Izzo Talk Show. Miss Max.
Yeah.
Sir Charles. Razor in the booth in the building. Miss Max, people don't want to miss the rest of the show for sure. So what's the ways that people can reach out to us? I'm just curious. If I don't live in Charlottesville, Miss Max, but I want to hear our angelic voices.
Right. So you can always call us 434-422-9101. We're streaming live on Facebook, so you can send your questions and comments there. We also have Twitter. Charles, help me out. Which ones am I missing?
Wherever they want us. Wherever they Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It don't even matter.
There you go.
That's right.
But look, we got to pick up this conversation about Beyonce again. Got to. Because now we have an expert in the room.
expert in everything. None other than Dr. Andrea Douglas. Dr. Douglas, how are you this Sunday afternoon, ma'am?
I'm well. Thank you for having me here. I appreciate it.
Anytime, you know it. Hey, Razor, just so you know, I don't know if you have a headset or something. We're getting a little feedback from you, Razor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if you have a headset, but yeah. So Dr. Douglas, this is a great transition, I believe, into the conversation with you as we talk about stores in the Plowshares, monuments, statues, the symbolism behind how things are named, like the history of landmarks, because some know, but a lot don't. When it comes to American music, in general. The role that Black Americans, even slaves, played in that, and so when people look at Beyonce and what she's doing, like with her new music, when it comes to going in that country realm, she's getting a lot of backlash for being this, Black woman going to the country realm for different reasons, right? Could be her star power may overshadow, folks who are currently ingrained in it. But one thing that I'm seeing from it is that it's actually shedding light.
Right.
And which is where I want you to kind of come in it with shedding that light, is that we have a lot of current young country artists who now are topping Billboard charts because now more attention is being paid to Black country artists. She also shed light on some of the original country singers in America who were Black women. So what does that mean to you? Like that, just that representation of taking an art form that when you do the history, Black Americans played such a big part in it. Now fast forward, and the Black Americans getting backlash for taking part in it.
Well, I think that, my understanding of Beyonce's practice right now is that she's trying to create an overarching arc of information, that she's trying to, for instance, in the last album, we can talk about this album, but in the last album, the combination of using HBCU bands, HBCU bands, to talk about a relationship of African American people even to the horn, and the idea of that kind of music playing, right? She's allowing us to engage broadly in a conversation about American music, number one. But number two, also allowing us to engage in Black cultural space. And this album is just yet another continuation of that. It's instrumental, so she's looking at the very instruments of making. She's talking about the origins of music. And so I think that
one can parallel that backlash to the very sort of kind of backlash that we're all feeling as we're talking about inscribing and re-articulating what American cultural and social practice looks like, right? And the spaces where Black people are attempting to keep Black people out, and the spaces where Black people are asserting themselves because we have greater capacity now to define and describe histories that we had no capacity to define before. Because other people were writing our histories for us. And so I think that what needs to be applauded here, whether she's using her star power or not, thank goodness for the star power, but also thank goodness for the fact that the star power is not empty, that it's being buttressed by fact and truth. And one hopes, I hope, certainly that's the reason why I wake up in the morning, I guess, that those uncontested spaces are spaces that people will engage in lively conversation. We're talking about the ways in which she's bringing people along, people who'd been lost out of a canon. And a canon is, the things that we all agree on as being true and right. And so I applaud her shaking that space up nicely. And again,
agree.
not informed by garbage, but informed by real substantive, historic, undebatable narratives. So that's what I've been enjoying.
Thank you for that take.
So you like Texas Hold'em?
I do like Texas Hold'em. I like it quite a lot, actually.
When that sound come on, you dance to it a little bit.
I'm trying to figure out those steps. I'm watching the TikTok. Someday, I mean, the idea that we can leave Black people out of the history of country, that we can leave out, means you leave them. You want to abandon the blues, right? What is country music but the blues? That you want to abandon the idea that Black people were out in these spaces known as country spaces. That the very notion of country is a conglomeration of Blackness and whiteness, and where it meets. That's historic fact. That's American fact, right? So I think that some of this argument doesn't make any sense in my mind.
Right.
We got nothing else to talk about. But on the other hand, it's kind of fun because I think that it opens space, and that's what we want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that. But the importance there is, I feel, is a great transition into sort of the crux of why we have you here today to further discuss your Swords into Plowshares initiative. And thanks to the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center and all that play a part in the Swords into Plowshares movement. For those who don't know, which is an innovative project to melt down the statue of Robert E. Lee that formerly stood in one of Charlottesville's public parks and use the bronze to make a new work of public art. And also, for those that don't know, there's a survey, that will get you to delve more into for folks to make their views known on how they want their public monument, statues, parks to represent what the community wants to be known by, right? So the Swords in the Plowshares project as a whole, I guess. Max, I think a good place, since everybody knows about the Lee statue and like the renaming of that park, Dr. Douglas, I guess bring our listeners up to speed to make sure everybody's, starting from the same vantage point when it comes to, a brief history on the Lee statue and the current Market Street Park and where we are now. Like when it comes to that, then we can dig into everything else with Swords in the Plowshares.
Yeah. What's interesting about this year, 2024, would have been the 100th anniversary of the placement of the Lee statue in what was once Lee Park, which is now Market Street Park. The fact that it was removed in the these dates are real hard.
Yeah.
COVID made us have COVID brain. So, 2021 removed in 2021, and that we're still sort of talking about it in 2024 speaks to, I think, in my mind, the very reason why Swords and the Plowshares is a thing or should be considered a thing. Because it speaks to the idea of a set of ideologies, a set of methodologies of controlling the way in which we move around in our public space. And what for me is the most important and really the reason why I got even involved in this, both personally and causing our institution, the African American Heritage Center, to be participant in it, was because of this idea of the public and who has the right to be public. I remember in 2013 when we first started, one of the conversations that were being had by some of actually you all in the room was the visibility or invisibility of Black people in Charlottesville, right? And my response to that was to do all of these draw-a-thons and whatever, because it was about people not being seen, right? And I think that these objects, as we think about them in our public spaces, were objects that were just as participant in making that idea possible as any other, because they basically said, this is the place where Black people could be seen, and this is the place where Black people could not be seen.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So we understand those objects as symbols of marking belonging and not belonging, of ownership and not ownership and non-ownership. Right. And so in some ways, had those monuments not come down, we would have been living with those ideologies for 100 years in our community. And so very quickly after the African American Heritage Center was deeded by the city, these objects, we then were named in a lawsuit. And that lawsuit took 2 years to complete. But the implications even for that time was that we had the opportunity now to create a space of case law where the question of whether or not a community could make decisions that had been decided by the Supreme Court, that was at the very heart of what this lawsuit was about, brought by people who claimed that they had standing, that by the very nature of their desire to acquire something, that they had to right to interfere in a community's decision making.
Right.
And that, in fact, is what that lawsuit was about. So by going through that process, we established a sense of of case law that now allows Charlottesville to act autonomously about its public spaces. But we have to also ask ourselves a question. What does it mean to be public? And what are our public spaces? At the heart of this, these objects were placed in parks, right? Every single one of them. In whether it have been the Lee statue, whether it was the Sacagawea, Lewis and Clark statue, all of that is surrounded by parkland, and the plinth that's still there is all about landscape, right? So this idea of the land and where these objects sit, deeply ingrained in us. And again, who has the right to that? Public. At the moment these objects are being put into our spaces, that's exactly what is at the heart of some of this conversation, right? 1924 is the same year that the Racial Integrity Act is formed. And by 1926, it's illegal for Blacks and whites to occupy public space. And what is the most public of our spaces, if not our parks? And where do these objects live?
In our parks.
They create 2 parks for it, right? They create the Court Square Park by removing Black property, right? So that's a park. They establish Lee Park, which is ostensibly property that was once part of a plantation. They create McIntyre Park. They create Washington Park, and they even create Belmont Park. So parks are also part of this discourse around these objects, because the creation of leisure space suggests that a society is a cosmopolitan space. And so they're also building hotels at the same time, right? So the Almora Hotel goes in, And Charlottesville is then dubbed as a destination. And we continue to use the language of the 1920s to continue to see ourselves as destination. And I know this is all sort of like maybe seen as this sort of stretch of the mental, but it's
good
fact,
overview.
right? It's a documented fact. So here we are, we're establishing our leisure. Here we are doing all of these things. And we're doing them in relationship to a population that in and of itself is aspiring those kinds of ways too. One of the first things that African-American people do when they have the capacity to do something in the 1890s is they create what is described as one of the largest carnivals in Central Virginia, right? And that's also all about being out in public space and enjoying leisure. So that I could have given you the history of the Lee statue, but that is not necessarily the history in my mind that we need to be thinking through as we move forward.
It's bigger than the Lee statue.
It's much bigger than the last. Those are markers, right? Those are ideological markers in the same way that any kind of fetishized symbol can be seen as an ideological marker, right?
That's good.
But I think we ought to also be thinking about landscape and moving and what that landscape means about identity and belonging, right? And so that's, for me, where we sit with Swords and the Plowshares right now.
That's good. So that was
a lot. Look, I'm like, keep talking.
For sure. And that was actually perfect because, since we are at the bottom of the hour, that overview was perfect. So let's go ahead and take a break. And when we come back just in a couple of minutes, we're going to dig into our questions because you just loaded up and now we're ready to fire. Now, we're good. So, So y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back after this brief break with none other than Dr. Andrea Douglas. And we're going to be digging into the mission and work of Swords into Plowshares, IMHO Talk Show.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
I am HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
I am HO Talk Show. Sir Charles.
Miss Max.
Razor.
In the booth in the building, none other than Dr. Andrea Douglas, talking some swords into plowshares. Dr. Douglas, we'd be remiss. I don't want to go any further without shouting out one part that people can find more information on your website about in 2016, a high schooler named Zayana Bryant. You ever heard the name for Zayana Bryant?
Sounds familiar.
Some of y'all never heard of that.
Yeah.
She laughing right now.
Created a petition calling for the removal of the Lee statue. Definitely wanted to give her flowers and shout her out. But so to follow up on our conversation, thank you for so eloquently laying that backdrop, the overview of everything that Plows and Swords and the Plowshares is standing for and is all about. The one thing that popped into my mind when you were talking, though, because I heard you say the word public multiple times, right? So it's hard for us as human beings sometimes to disagree and yet understand that someone else has a different perspective and different lived experiences that are informing their perspective. So when you say public park, how much weight do you give to the people who disagree with what you're doing? People who live here and say, no, like I feel like that piece of history should be there.
I think we give considerable weight to them,
Okay.
actually. I mean, our goal is to create the most democratic process that we can. Our goal is to create a process that was antithetical to the process that put those objects in our public spaces to begin with. That was a decision not even made by a majority. It was a decision made by a moneyed few, people who could afford it, people who held a strong attachment to the economic spaces of this community. So I don't even know if we can really claim that even in putting those objects in, the question should have been asked, what does the public, who was the public? But they were very public about it. School children got the day off, learned how to sing Dixie, and were part of the spectacle of the installation of these objects. So public for them was very important. And they went into the public in order to articulate their ideals. This process has been described as anti-monument, which is what we hoped that it would be. But it must be public, and we have not created a space that allows people who don't agree with the process not to participate in the process. We have just made decisions guided by a public about how this process is going to unveil itself. And we have taken the time to be as thoughtful about it as we can. The community engagement that we launched, we tried to do that in the middle of COVID. That's an impossible thing, and some would argue that it's impossible to do because in the beginning of COVID, nobody was coming out. So we used the most immediate vehicle, which is a survey. And that survey was made available to anybody who wanted to answer it. And your responses were recorded. So if you felt that this was not a process that we should be engaged in, then you had every opportunity. You mentioned 2016. 2016 had a Blue Ribbon Commission. In 26, that came out of the 700 responses to Sayana's survey, by the way, 726 or some number like that, responses to her survey. So this has always been about a community engagement and a public engagement. So whether you agree or disagree, you have every right to speak and have been given multiple opportunities to speak. The question becomes, what is being crafted of those conversations? And overwhelmingly, from the perspective that we have, what is being crafted is a set of engagements where Charlottesville has said, we don't want these objects in our spaces, right? we want them removed, and so they were.
Mm-hmm.
The now is, what do you want in your public
Right.
space?
Mm-hmm.
And that is also yet another opportunity to begin to engage with your contemporary selves.
Hmm. Now,
and
now elaborate more on the now, though. Can I ask that first, Max?
Yeah.
I want you to elaborate more on the now, because I think that you would believe that if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat your history. So if the majority is to remove it, then what's the recommendation for still telling that story?
I don't know if it's our responsibility to tell that story.
Okay.
Right? I mean, the assumption is that the story is the story.
Mm-hmm.
And in the age of digital reproduction, there is no inability to access that story. And as a matter of fact, there is the notion of the Confederacy and its actions live in the place where that is appropriate. We didn't, I mean, if you're concerned about the history of the Civil War and a representation of the history of the Civil War, there is such a thing in our community.
That is interesting that you say that we don't tell that story, especially as a historian.
What do you mean?
Well, what you're saying is that we don't then educate our population or our community in general, what have you, about what that statue represented.
But we did. We spent, Dr. Jolene Schmidt and I spent almost 2 years doing these tours around those statues. We had, in those 2 years, almost 2,000 people at those tours. Those tours were offered to the public. Anyone could come. And it's through those tours that many people learned about that. We spent, post 2017, we took 100 people in our community on a pilgrimage to return the remains of John Henry James. That was an amplified outcome. It wasn't just 100 people. We've been engaged in this for years, educating this community. The question is the community listening? Right? The Heritage Center since 2020 has been teaching our local teachers African-American history, so they would be equipped to be in the classroom. We've done over 100 teachers that we've trained, right? So we've been engaged deeply in this education process.
And that needs to continue, because I think that's sort of the crux of what we're asking. And of course, this is conversational.
No,
right?
Sure. I'm just saying that this to do this well, one has to continue the education.
Exactly. And that's what we're getting at.
Yeah, we have to continue it. And the thing that we're talking about now, where we are in the process is to begin to develop a set of documents, our request for qualifications. So this is the invitation to artists who may be interested in taking this raw material and creating something out of it. Once we do the request for qualifications, we write a request for proposal. And that is when we actually get all of the proposals in from artists. And my hope is that during this process, we continue the education process so that the community, once we're started engaged in this, feels informed enough to continue to carry on with us.
Yeah.
Right?
How do you tell the truth without teaching hate for yourself? You know what I mean? All right, so what I'm getting at is that,
how do you teach what you don't want to become? Yep.
And the reason, thank you, Razor, and where I'm coming from with that is, I notice more so in the rural areas. I've heard, I'm from Madison County, and what you hear at school board meetings and whatnot, when people want to argue whether whether you want to call it critical race theory or whether you want to call for instance, when we talk about swords and the plowshares, right? To bring it home, it's when people talking about the need to get rid of white supremacy and its symbols, right? A lot of white people or people who still like romanticize the Confederacy. They say that their fear is you're teaching their children to hate themselves just by teaching them their history. So I'm asking you as an educator, right? What is that line for you? Like, what is, I guess, your technique to say, hey, this is just the actual factual of history.
Is that our argument?
I mean, but to be a teacher, like you gotta, like I'm saying, I think, like, so imagine a teacher in a K-12 school, you got a mix of races in your class.
Yeah.
And you got some parents saying, you're teaching my kid to hate themselves and to hate their history. And then you got other people saying, but we just want to tell the truth. I'm asking as a professor, as a doctor, what's like, how do you find that balance? Like to be sensitive of people or respectful of people, I guess.
Well, I don't first of all live in the world of hate. Mm-hmm. And so that's to begin with.
Okay.
Right. I don't live in a world of hate. I do live in a world of forensics, and I live in a world of facts, and I live in a world of debate, and I live in a world of conversation, and I live in a world of critical thinking. And I live in a world where putting all of those things together and then causing someone to come to a conclusion is, in my mind, what education is about. It is teaching the process of thinking and arriving at a conclusion as a consequence of putting together all of the facts. We hope that we're not being one-sided. We're hoping, as we are teaching the history of this place, that we're teaching the full history of this place, that we're not saying this is the singular narrative, that there are multiple, that we are saying that there are multiple actors that come to form this place. And each one of those actors are participant, and therefore we need to value their dialogue and their conversation. And as we put together those things, we get to a place where we have a better understanding.
I mean,
That's what we're asking.
it sounds like a strategy for individuals to not have to grapple with their truth or the truth. And I don't know if we have, that's our battle. You know, we clearly, as Dr. Douglas just said, our responsibility is to tell the truth. And yours is to deal with it however you may, but you tell the truth.
And I think it's also our responsibility is to live in the 21st century. And I say that because in the 21st century, there are multiple voices. In the 20th century, up until a certain point, those voices did not have the legal right to speak. They now do, right? And it is important that we live in this world as opposed to trying to re-articulate the biases, the inherent biases of a world that we no longer live in. And I know that sounds naive, but I don't know that we all see ourselves often enough in the 21st century. We acquire information. I mean, I'm engaged in conversations now that are about AI and the implications of AI and things like that, right? And how do we create collective memory? And that is one of the things that this process is about. How do we create collective memory? And at what point do we define collective memory as a memory of today moving forward? Or is it a memory that carries with us the difficulties of our past into our future without learning completely what those difficulties were? Right?
Okay.
And so as we are thinking through this process for Swordsmen and Plowshares, number one, our goal, as I said, is to create a democratic process. We are not saying that there is no voice of opposition in this room, because we know that there are. And we know that the opposition is for multiple reasons. There is opposition that is grounded in, aesthetics. There's opposition grounded in a economics. There's all manner of opposition to this process. But that doesn't mean that you don't cause your community through this process to think about itself. And I think that is what we're trying to do here also at Swordsmen and Plowshares. If we are in fact writing policy to define ourselves, what are we writing that policy based on? Right? How do we understand that? And can an art object, through this collective discussion, create something that is representative of what this particular period wants.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also something to be valued as we think about what that is.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So we are joined by Dr. Andrea Douglas, talking swords into plowshares. And so you mentioned the survey as well. Tell so currently, I guess, dig a little deeper into those who may not know that there's an active survey right now on what you're trying to garner from that.
Yeah. So this is our second survey. The first survey was about public space. What was a space that one felt comfortable in? What was a space that one did not feel comfortable in? What could be developed that would cause people to feel more comfortable around occupying that space? This survey is actually about the landscape, because there's some things that we know about this landscape relative to where an object could go, because this is now the question of where you're going to put it. Some people would like us to put it right back into Market Park.
That's actually what I thought was going to happen, but that's still up in the air.
It's all up in the air.
Okay.
It was never decided. We still have to have a conversation with the city of Charlottesville.
Okay.
Right? This will ultimately be a gift. Right? But it was never decided exactly what that location was, because this is supposed to be a community-based, community-driven discourse. So, but what we do know is that we're speaking about a very specific space. And what we understand about this specific space is that this space also has its own set of histories that allow us not to just think about the Jim Crow period in the 20th century, but also think about the full breadth of what this landscape looks like. Charlottesville is the fourth richest, or was the fourth richest, Charlottesville, Elmore, the fourth richest community as a consequence of chattel slavery. There were plantations in the center of Charlottesville. We still live with the remnants of those plantations in the ways that we name our locations, right? The easiest one, Belmont, Penn Park, places like that we know are identifiable landscape plantations. We also know that those then morph into becoming city space, right? Cared for by the city in some instances once they become parks. And then, as I said earlier, a very specific moment in time that those places Black people no longer have access to them, right?
I have a question as soon as Dr. Douglas is finished. I got an important question.
Sure. And so this new survey, just getting it back to this thing, new survey is about what do people know about these landscapes? If they knew about them, would they want to know more about them? And then ultimately, where do they think this object ought to go? Right? And so it is that information that we're attempting to gather in order to then make ourselves able to write those two RFP, the RFQ and the RFP. So the survey is a really important thing, but we're foregrounding certain conversations, right? Right now, the survey, only 16% of the African-American population has answered that survey, right? Minimum 20% of that survey response, because that is equal to our representation at minimum.
And the survey's on your website, or
it is. You can find it on the Heritage Center website, right on the first page. So that's jeffschoolheritagecenter.org, or you can find it on the sipseville.com webpage. And the sipseville.com is specifically related to the project. And so the other piece of this is this history that I'm trying to articulate is a history that I think African-American people should be particularly interested in, because it is a narrative about themselves as well, and themselves in on the land. The fact of the matter is, leisure, as described as parks, is something that is a difficult space for Black people to have the right to be in. Someone said to me, a conversation about parks should include, or a survey about parks should include a income demographic. And the reason why that was said was because his response was, Black people are too busy working to go to parks. And I thought that was an interesting response to that. So, you can see where I'm going with this. There's a whole lot of layered discourse around this landscape. And if we are, in fact, thinking about an object that is going to go back in the public, we have to contend with that, with these facts, right? If we are indeed interested in our entire community having the quality of life that we invest so much money in, which is our parks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll kick it to Razor, but one thing that I wanted to point out that you said that I feel a lot of power in is that just like McIntyre's gifted, statues, the fact that you said that this would essentially be a gift to the city. Like, think about historically how powerful it is, Max, to say that a group of majority Black people in a Black organization then gifted the new representation that 100 years ago was gifted within the veil of white supremacy. That's powerful. So I think we should be wanting to be a part of this.
I want to let Razor speak, but go ahead with your great question, Razor.
Yeah, Dr. Douglas, I have an important question. All right. Okay. If our representation is at a max 20%, right? What do we do and you keep saying community, what do we do if we find out when the community talks that they actually want to keep things as they are? They don't want the change. They don't want the representation that Charles is talking about. What have we invested at that point, and how do we go forward?
So I was actually thinking about that too, because it is disheartening to hear that so few of us have responded to this survey. And unfortunately, the trend is sometimes that if we show up to support something, we show up for the rah-rah. We show up when, we need to stand on the table. We show up when we need to pound the table. But for the work and the processes that may follow to gain the desired outcome, that's when we're absent. And I know that this is challenging to your process.
No, it's not. I don't believe this is. I believe that this is important to my process.
Okay.
To be honest, I believe that what we're attempting to undertake is to create a space of equity. Is to be able to say that those people who had no voice at the moment that these objects were placed in our community originally should have a voice. But we're also doing that with a very clear understanding that not everyone is going to agree. But as I said earlier, this process is not a new process. We didn't start it yesterday.
Right.
This is a process that we have been guided by the voices of people in this community who have said, yes, this is what we want. We are not doing this because the Heritage Center decided when we woke up one day and we were like, take on this colossal project. Our job at the Heritage Center is to tell the history of this local space and of African-American people nationally and internationally at times. But in order to be doing that, you have to contend with this local space, because this local space, as a historic fact, is responsible for much of the racial narrative that we live with in this country. And we know that. And so what we're simply asking is for everyone in this community to exercise their capacity and ability to speak. And if I believe of all the people in this community who should exercise that, Black people should.
Absolutely.
This is our opportunity to speak. Right? This is our opportunity to begin to reinsert a narrative that is at the heart of the city of Charlottesville. Right? The city of Charlottesville becomes a city in the 1880s. African-American people are building their community as early as 1870. We talk about Vinegar Hill as lost, but we rarely talk about Vinegar Hill as one of the oldest neighborhoods in the city of Charlottesville before it's taken down. Right? So that's not just about Black people. This is the city of Charlottesville. We're building this neighborhood from the beginning. And so we should engage in that, but we're also building spaces through our own labors that we hadn't at a certain point had no right to be in. And we're segregating ourselves today based on those ancient ideas, right? Why are we only at Counselor Park? Why do we lament Washington Park? Why aren't we spending more time at Belmont Park? Why aren't we in these other places? Why do we need to put this object in Market Street Park? Why can't we rethink what our cultural landscapes look like and demand that the stories of these places be told? Those, I mean, those are just questions to be asked. And it's not for me to respond necessarily. It's for the community to respond.
Right. So, Dr. Douglas, please allow me to digress just a tad, just a tad, because you took that conversation somewhere that I can't help but to go, because I've been a part of the conversation, seems pretty often, especially here lately, when it comes to spaces, quote unquote safe spaces, quote unquote Black spaces, right, and the need for them, or maybe the need to not have them and to focus more on integrated spaces. So like I'm gonna need your philosophy here. I'm gonna need you to get philosophical with me. Like, what is the importance of that? Because while I get that we're in, a century now to where things are different, as you've stated, but in so many ways we're not post-racial. Like, we still see that there's there's still infrastructural things that are in place that still hold back certain demographics, right? And so I'm curious your stance on, if you believe, and it's your professional opinion. If you want to give a personal opinion, it's on you. But for Black people to already feel like that we have to assimilate already, we have to code switch already in so many spaces, that there's a need to have safe space where Black people can be their unapologetic, authentic selves. Like, what's your take on that?
I think we can chew gum and walk at the same time.
Okay.
That's my take on it. And I think that is at the heart of even this conversation. People have asked me, why are you spending your time thinking about removing statues when we could be thinking about, housing? Well, why can't we think about housing and removing statues?
True.
Right? I believe that there is everything about that. Let me start over. To want to hold on to a cultural self, to want to look at people who look like you, who are performing like you, shouldn't be considered a negative. It's the way in which one prepares oneself to enter into the world, right? Whole people understand who they are so that when they step out into the world, they remain whole as they are then engaging with other people who are not like them. But if you have no place that tells you what it means to be a whole you, then you know nothing about it and you don't know how to do it. And so when you get into another space, you're performing not as yourself, but you're performing in relationship to something else. Right. And so that's why I believe that a heritage center is important in our community, because it allows us to learn about ourselves. It allows us to teach others about who we are. And it allows for a free conversation between those two spaces. I think that when you're asking an institution to be everything, then that institution may or may not do that successfully. But I also believe that without a heart, you can do whatever you want to save the body. But without the heart that understands what that body needs,
Yep.
You're not acting as a whole person. And so that's why I believe you can do both. You can move into these two spaces, but sometimes you need to step back and come home.
Mm-hmm.
And no one ever says you don't have a right to go home, right?
Right.
So why do we not have a right to have a cultural center?
Right.
Yeah, love it. Thank you for that response. And Max and Razor, as we kind of draw to a close,
I do have one more thing.
Make sure,
I do have one more thing.
I want to make sure y'all chime in. You can go ahead, Max. I did have something else too, but just want to make sure y'all.
So I know that this conversation is more focused on public spaces in terms of parks, but you touched on something a little bit earlier that I'm hoping you can expound on. But when we talk about public spaces and implicit and explicit racism and feeling a sense of belonging or safe space, as Charles referenced it, one of the things that immediately comes to mind for me is the downtown mall. Now, aside from just the history of the land itself, that mall is not conducive to African Americans feeling safe and welcomed and a sense of belonging there. And I know that the city and individuals, local groups have attempted to make it more inclusive. So we get things like block parties and the occasional tom-tom concert, which I'm sure goes a long way with people. But it doesn't get to the heart of the issue, which is that we talk about these racist symbols when we talk about the statues, but those symbols can still exist and be non-existent, right? And so we're missing something there. And I don't know how you want to respond to those remarks, but we clearly have a better job to do in terms of making that place, which many people would refer to as the pulse or the heartbeat of the city, feel like Black folk belong there.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is like the symbolic piece is not enough. You know what I mean? Right. And I think a lot of times some people get happy with a name change. But the hearts of the people running is still the same.
And local people have proposed different things like that. Let's change the name of the downtown mall and different things like that. But
I don't know what it is. I mean, I think for me that, I was just in Cartagena a week ago. And one of the things that was really amazing to me was the visual representation in a physical space of Black people, right? For instance, murals everywhere, right? An engagement with a history everywhere, without having to anesthetize that history, right? And so a sort of visual belonging there.
Yeah.
We don't have that on the mall. You don't need to change the name of the mall, but you do at some point need to acknowledge the fact that, there were several African-American people who owned businesses on that mall, and not have that be a transient fact. Have it be a fact.
Yeah.
Right? The sort of way that we articulate who Charlottesville is within that space is part of the reason why we're even taking the route that we're taking and talking about public. Because even the mall is considered within the sense of the outdoors and the way that outdoor spaces move. But when you see Black people, we're relegated to the fringes of that visual space. Right? And the fact of us is not engaged within the interior of that visible space.
Yeah.
And so if you're not in the interior, then your sort of sense of self and your notion that you can come there, because we assume that if we put in African American history, that it would not then allow for Black people to come to the mall and feel themselves around. We don't have to be necessarily engaged in the commerce of it, but we just have to be in it. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what we didn't put back in when they redid the mall.
Yeah.
Right?
And we self-select out a lot too, Max.
Right.
I got to say that.
That is part of it too. I think Dr. Douglas would agree with that.
But when they designed the mall, they didn't design the truth of the mall. They created a public park. Right? That was it. Lots of trees, brick walkways, an intentional strolling and leisure participation through that.
Yeah.
Right? And so the ownership of space and the truth of even that narrative doesn't exist. And then when you start to think, where are the images of Blackness on that wall? It's on the fringes, right? The very thing that they claim that they put on there.
Right.
One mural is on Market Street and the other one is on 2nd Street. And we're not quite sure what those trees are doing, but they're holding hands and allegedly they're all of us. So I think that it is, you can never disforce the ways in which we talk about landscape, because the landscape is about ambulation and movement of people. And if at the end game of this is about people, then you have to think about these places in that kind of way. It is not necessarily because the prices are high why Black people don't come to the mall. It is because they don't know that that place was their place and that they also have right to be in that place, because there's a narrative about them in that place as well.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, like when that was quote unquote created,
that's empowering, what you just said, by the way, but go ahead, Charles.
Yeah. Thank you for that. But if I'm not mistaken, like when it was created to what we know it as today, I believe we had a Black mayor and one of the lead architects was a Black person.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I just didn't want that to go without being known. I'm sure some people don't know that.
Yeah. But again, that just goes to the way that we want to speak about this place. Right. And the notion of the bucolic lives here in our narrative. And so that the bucolic doesn't necessarily include Black folk. Black folk live in the landscape as labor, not as leisure.
Yeah. So I know one other thing that I have for you, is just the idea, and it kind of feeds off of the conversation of space and who the space is for, whatnot. Like, so even when we look at the partnerships, and this is something that Reza actually was I was talking about earlier. Like when it comes to like certain like names and such, and like where we put the importance, right? And even what Max was just saying a minute ago, it's like you can have sort of the symbolic things, and then you can have like the intangible things that may even mean more on the latter part. So when I so like where we put our weight at. So when I look at partners, and I'm gonna try not to get you in trouble.
I don't care.
But UVA is pretty heavy when it comes to the coalition, right? So you're talking the Memory Project at University of Virginia, the Karsh Institute of Democracy, UVA's Institute for Environmental Negotiation, Virginia Humanities, which is separate technically from UVA. But that piece in Charlottesville is just so crucial and so important, because understanding to some people, UVA could never do enough to rebuild what was built off of the backs of Black folk. Some people was like they never could do enough. But we constantly see like these UVA departments that like they get involved, and some people say it's sort of to save face, or like they may, like we have the indentured servant memorial. Is that the official name? The indentured servant memorial, or the slave memorial? Like what do we want to call it?
The monument to enslaved labor.
The monument to enslaved labor. Like, so to me, even that's sugarcoating what it was, if we really want to get down nitty gritty. And I'm not trying to disrespect any, because I know it's beautiful for the families of descendants that's still here and whatnot. But I bring that up though because it's still a matter of like we have institutions and people who uphold the institutional prejudices that still exist, but then they do like partial of what they could do. So, so I just wanted to put that on the table to see like how do we even combat that? And Razor, this is kind of stemming from what you said earlier on when you talked about the names on okay, if we change the name of a park, but our last name that we walk around with every day is still that of our former slave owner, then isn't that just as important? You know what I'm saying? So I just want to put, I don't know if anybody even wants to touch that, but I just want to put that on the table, that we still have institutions here that
Can I touch it?
Like to do a little bit at a time, just to say that they're doing something when they could make a bigger impact.
Can I touch it a little bit before Dr. Douglas go? This is one thing that I see about Charlottesville. I'm an implant. I'm not from here. I do understand coming up through school that the birthplace of America was right down the street. 3 of the founding fathers between Orange County, Harrisonburg, and Charlottesville developed what we know to be racism and the system that America operated by. I think that when we do things that is as important as what Dr. Douglas is doing, I think we also have to have the next stepping stone, because it will not change what they feel about us. They didn't even want to accept Sally Hemings as being as important as who she was in this area. So when we decide to put our, nose to the grindstone on several things, there is just inherent racism and financial wealth building that has been established that will never be unhinged. So we have to, in my humble opinion, we have to decide, where do we go while Dr. Douglas is doing this? What is the next thing that she needs for us to have that she can build off of? And we're going to have to get to a point where we just understand that in my humble opinion, there's never going to be true equality, because institutions like UVA is always going to raise up the next person that keeps the mission going by which they were built on.
I don't think I can agree or disagree with any of what you said. But here's what I think in some real terms here. I think that when I talk about what it means to be a 21st century person, you can either let somebody write your story or you can engage in the writing of that story yourself.
Yes.
You can either continue to allow a narrative to be written about you that affects your erasure, or you can step into that place where that narrative is being written and demand your fact, the fact of yourself.
Yep.
And so our hope is that more of us stand in that space, right? It is because we have been standing in that space that we have been driving this notion of democracy and freedom to begin with. We can never be lazy. And I don't want to use the word lazy as a negative. Lazy meaning that we have done this. We know how to do it. Let's not be forgetful. Right? This community is this community because we did this. Let's not be forgetful. Right? Let us not be dismissive about what people have done in order for us to be able to even have this conversation where we said those symbols of racism need to be removed. And someone dared to say, stupidly or smartly, if it's not us, then who?
Right.
And I said, if it's not us, then who?
That's right.
Right. And I don't say that because I need affirmation. I'm saying that's what I did.
Right.
What I'm asking for is that we do what we have always done. That's what we've done. We've always done it. Let's keep doing that. Right. And not worry about that other stuff. Because in fact, if it wasn't for Black people's true understanding of what it means to be free, a good number of us would not be free in the way that we believe ourselves to be today.
Yeah.
And so we owe it to ourselves to continue not to be resilient, but to be persistent. Throw the resilient word away. Be persistent. We have always been persistent. We should continue to be so.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for that. Max, I ain't gonna touch it. I mean, like
good stuff. Good stuff.
Like she set the booth on fire right there. So you go ahead, Max. You close it how you want to close it.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Douglas, you know your family here. This was a great conversation, and I want to thank you for being here and sharing with our listening audience the rich history of the city, the good work that's going on in this city, the charge that many of us, the mantle that many of us have taken on, and the commitment to making this city an example to the world in the right way and for good reasons. And we need more like you, and more like Charles, and more like me, and more like Razor.
Razor? More like
Razor. Yeah. But no, I say all that to say, it's what you're doing and what you represent is a true example of Black excellence. And we thank and appreciate you and your team for that. And this is a collective effort. IMHO does what we do to benefit the Charlottesville community and the Black community here. Jefferson School Heritage Center does the same. And then all of these other little pockets of people and organizations that are doing their good work too, to invest in our local Black community. It takes all of us. And I want to thank you all, and want to encourage you all to continue the good work. It's sometimes difficult work, sometimes not so sexy work, but it's the work that matters, because somebody, some kid is in the balance. If we decide to not press on, be persistent, and make the change that we all so much desire.
That is right. And Dr. Douglas, I do want to make sure that they know how to get to that ever important survey one more time.
Yes. So you can find it either at sipcville.com or jeffschoolheritagecenter.org.
All right. Take care, family. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.